Alina Morgan had never liked fences. But the wooden posts that bordered her land weren't just boundaries anymore, they were shields. She'd moved out to the edge of the suburban sprawl to escape exactly what now threatened to spill into her peace. HOA madness. On paper, her farmhouse sat just outside the jurisdiction line. But paper didn't stop the knock on her fence that morning, a crisp, overconfident rhythm followed by the kind of pause that expected obedience. She stepped out onto her porch with her coffee in hand and saw her. Pencil skirt, clipboard, attitude, Karen Delaney. President of the Willow Ridge Homeowners Association. Known for her precision smiles and ruthless rule enforcement. Alina, right, Karen called sweetly, not bothering to hide that she'd already trespassed a step inside the fence. Alina nodded but didn't move. This is private property. HOA line ends 100 feet that way. Karen's smile flickered. Oh, we're aware. But the board recently passed a provision for extended easement enforcement on border lots. It's all very standard. I'm just here to make sure everything's in, ... Harmony. Harmony. Elena's knuckles whitened around her mug. Karen's eyes darted to Elena's mailbox. Then to the antique windmill beside her barn. You know, that mailbox is 6 inches taller than the regulation allows, and that windmill could be considered an unapproved structure visible from the road. I'd hate for you to rack up fines, ... I'm not under your rules, Alina said flatly. You know that. Karen laughed. Too loud and too long for the moment. Technically, not yet. But, let's not make this adversarial. I'm here as a courtesy. She turned to walk away but not before snapping photos of Elena's property with her phone. That evening, Elena reviewed her old deed. Her land was outside the HOA's plotted reach. The line was clear. She had maps, signatures, and legal proof, but she'd also seen enough suburban feuds to know this wouldn't end at a fence line. The next morning, a brand new sign had appeared bolted to the fence post by her drive. Welcome to Willow Ridge, enforced by HOA Compliance Patrol. No one had asked her. No one had notified her. The cameras that pointed at her property were mounted overnight. HOA trucks passed her mailbox like sharks circling blood. By week's end, a letter arrived from the HOA, demanding she remove unauthorized decor and threatening escalating fines. She laughed bitterly. But then she saw the fine print on the letterhead. Revised zoning survey incorporating adjacent lots 32A 32C. Her lot was 32C. She drove to the county office herself, pulled the records, and found something that turned her stomach. A new map, uploaded just days ago. Her lot was shaded pink now. Claimed annexed, but someone had doctored the map. She scanned the signature at the bottom, and saw a name that made her pulse spike. Karen Delaney. Back at her house, Alina didn't yell. She didn't march to Karen's door. She sat down, opened her laptop, and typed one name into her email. Marcus Vance, attorney at law. And as she clicked send, she whispered aloud, game on. 3 days passed before Alina heard the gravel crunch under someone else's shoes. It was mid-morning, the sun warm but sharp, and the shadows from her windmill stretched across her lawn like spears. She looked out from the kitchen window and froze. There she was again. Karen, that's time. She wasn't knocking, she was walking. Right past the warning signs, right through the front gate, her high heels stabbing the earth like it owed her rent. She was holding a tape measure and her ever-present phone, snapping photos of Elena's shed, her driveway, and even her rose bushes. Elena grabbed her phone and hit record. She opened the door and stepped onto the porch. You're trespassing. Karen didn't even look up. No, I'm conducting an inspection under Section 8B of the Willow Ridge Expansion Charter. As an acting board president, I'm authorized. You are not authorized to step on my land, Alina snapped. You're not a government agent. You're a volunteer with a clipboard. Karen turned slowly, smugness dripping off her like perfume. You'll want to be careful with that tone. Non-compliance penalties escalate weekly. Your mailbox alone is already up to $300. Alina narrowed her eyes. I told you before, I'm not part of Willow Ridge. Karen raised a manicured brow. The charter says otherwise. Your lot is now annexed. You'd know that if you read the new community rules. I did, Alina said, holding up a printout. And I also read the zoning laws. I pulled the county file myself. You forged the map. Karen's smirk flickered just for a second, but returned just as fast. Proof, sweetheart. Do you have proof? I do now, Elena said, still recording. Karen seemed to register the phone in Elena's hand for the first time. Recording me without my consent is a violation of HOA mediation policies. This isn't mediation, Alina replied coldly. It's evidence. Karen finally turned, walking back toward the gate with stiff shoulders. You'll be hearing from our legal team. Alina didn't respond. She just waited for Karen to leave before texting the video to Marcus Vance. Within minutes, his reply came through. This is gold. We'll bury her. But the war wasn't done escalating. The following night, Alina returned from a quick trip into town to find 2 new cameras mounted on tall aluminum poles pointed directly at her porch and bedroom windows. The poles stood outside her property line, but the lenses zoomed in like they were hunting her, and attached to one of them was another HOA sign, monitored area for community safety. She took photos, she emailed them to Marcus. But deep down, she felt something twist in her gut. This wasn't about fines or rules anymore. It was personal. The next morning, as she pulled out her mailbox to replace it, she noticed something strange buried near the base, a thin, black plastic device. She knelt, brushed off the dirt, and realized with a chill that it was a motion sensor. Karen had planted a surveillance grid on her land. Alina stood slowly, holding the device like a snake. That night, she and Marcus filed for an emergency injunction and submitted a restraining order request. But Marcus also mentioned something else, something deeper. Alina, he said over the phone, his voice low, I think this goes beyond you. I found documents. Karen's been amending the HOA charter behind the board's back. There's something bigger here. She's trying to seize properties. Alina stared out her window, eyes locked on the blinking red light of the camera pointed at her bedroom. Then let's give her exactly what she wants, she said, a fight. The room was packed tighter than a holiday garage sale. Folding chairs creaked under the weight of nosy residents and restless board members. The Willow Ridge monthly HOA meeting had never drawn more than 8 people until tonight. Karen sat at the head of the conference table, flanked by her usual enablers. Her lavender suit was freshly pressed, her clipboard thick with printed rules and half-read bylaws. She smiled at the crowd with the smug confidence of a queen certain her crown was secure. Then the double doors opened. In walked Marcus Vance. He didn't speak right away. He didn't need to. His tailored pinstripe suit, leather briefcase, and commanding presence drew the entire room's attention in a single breath. He moved like a man used to walking into trouble and walking out with a win. Karen blinked, her smile faltering just slightly. Excuse me, sir, this is a private HOA board meeting. Marcus didn't stop walking. He set his briefcase down in front of the board and clicked it open. I'm Marcus Vance, legal counsel for Alina Morgan. And this, he said, pulling out a stack of documents, is a cease and desist order addressed to both you and the Willow Ridge HOA. The room shifted. Whispers rose. Karen leaned forward, tone still syrupy. This is highly irregular. You can't just barge in here with you trespassed on my client's property, Marcus interrupted calmly. You installed unauthorized surveillance equipment. You forged zoning documentation submitted to the county land office. And you've been issuing fines to a homeowner who is, legally and geographically, not part of your Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. Marcus continued, sliding copies of maps and notarized deeds onto the table. We've submitted a formal injunction to the county court. You'll be served within 24 hours. Additionally, we're filing for damages, removal of all surveillance devices, and launching an investigation into HOA charter fraud. One of the board members, a quiet man named Doug, looked at Karen uneasily. Karen, you said we had legal grounds to include her land. Karen laughed nervously, eyes flicking between the board and the gathering residents. We do. I reviewed the expansion with the zoning office. The easement provision, Marcus held up a document. This map here, it's dated 2 weeks ago. It shows my client's land included in HOA jurisdiction. But here's the original zoning map from the year Willow Ridge was founded. Notice any differences? Doug leaned closer. Wait, the parcel numbers don't even match. A woman in the back stood up. Is this why my cousin's property taxes spiked? You added her to the HOA last month without telling her. Another voice, didn't you say we couldn't get a pool because of zoning? But you were trying to annex land for a community park. Karen's grip on the clipboard tightened. This is out of context. The amendments were part of a proactive community improvement initiative. It's been discussed internally. You mean secretly, Marcus said. No meeting minutes, no votes, just signatures, forged under the radar. Karen stood, her voice sharp now. You have no authority here. Neither do you, Marcus said, locking eyes with her. Not anymore. And then, with precise timing, he pulled out his final move, a printed email, signed by Karen herself. Laughing about dealing with the farm girl who thinks she owns her own hill, he slid it across the table. Accidentally sent to a board member who forwarded it to us. The room went silent. Karen's face drained of color. Marcus looked around the room. This board has a decision to make. Either you distance yourselves from this behavior, or we proceed with civil action against all sitting members. He turned and walked out, leaving the silence behind him like a smoke trail. Karen sat down slowly. For the first time in weeks, completely unsure of what to say. And outside in the parking lot, Alina sat in her truck, watching the front doors. When Marcus emerged, he simply gave her a small nod. The first hit had landed, and Karen knew it. The next morning, Alina's phone buzzed before sunrise. A motion alert. She blinked sleep from her eyes and checked the camera feed. A figure in a beige hoodie darted past her fence, crouched low. It wasn't a thief. It wasn't a prank. It was Karen planting something again. By the time Elena reached the gate, the figure had vanished into the pre-dawn light, but the evidence was there. Freshly dug dirt. Another motion sensor, and this time, a thin metal post with a blinking red light sat right at her boundary line. She ripped it out, took photos, and called Marcus. She's escalating, Alina said. She's bold, Marcus. Stupid bold. Marcus was already ahead. I've got a judge reviewing the emergency order today, but Alana, listen to me carefully, don't confront her again. Let her keep digging her own grave. Document everything. Alina did just that. For the next 48 hours, she became a shadow in her own home. Every time Karen's HOA patrols passed by, she recorded. When drones buzzed low over her land, she photographed their flight paths, and when she noticed one of her outdoor cameras had been tampered with, she pulled the memory card. What she saw made her chest tighten. Karen, along with a man from the HOA board, standing just inside Elena's tree line. Laughing, pointing, holding a can of spray paint and tagging a tree trunk with a bright orange dot. Alina zoomed in and paused the video. Her land was being marked. That night, Alina met Marcus at his office. The walls were lined with case files and courtroom sketches. But Marcus's eyes lit up when he saw the footage. She's planning something big, he said. This isn't just about you anymore. She's preparing for a forced land acquisition, probably wants to repurpose your property under HOA jurisdiction and claim it's a community green space. Alina raised an eyebrow. She really thinks she can steal my land and paint it as charity. She won't get that far, Marcus said. But it's time to go nuclear. They filed a civil harassment complaint and submitted the footage to local law enforcement. Then Marcus filed a formal subpoena request for HOA communication records, emails, text logs, surveillance logs. And that's when things got interesting. One of the surveillance logs, returned anonymously by a whistleblower, showed Karen had been monitoring not just Alana but several other homeowners near the border of Willow Ridge. Some were never told they'd been added to the HOA map. Some had been fined without any record of actual violations. It was a scheme, a massive one. Karen had created a slush fund using fraudulent fines and funneled the money into what she called the community beautification budget. But the receipts told another story. Expensive brunches, designer shoes, and a contractor invoice for a koi pond installed at her house. The fuse was lit. The next HOA meeting was standing room only. Residents who'd never cared before now showed up, waving violation letters and demanding answers. Karen tried to take control. She smiled, she smoothed her skirt, she called the chaos unfortunate misunderstandings. And that's when Marcus stood again, this time with a binder thicker than a brick. He opened it, smiled, and spoke just one sentence. Shall we begin with your koi pond, Ms. Delaney? Karen blinked, and for the first time, she didn't speak. Outside the meeting room, Alina watched from her truck again, the hum of justice buzzing louder than ever. But she knew Karen. This wasn't over. Not yet. Karen didn't show her face for 3 days after the koi pond revelation. The HOA board went silent. No patrol cars, no newsletters, not even a passive-aggressive email. To most, it seemed like the storm had passed. But Alina had seen this game before, and Karen wasn't the type to surrender, she was the type to reload. Marcus called late Thursday night. You need to come in. I found something. When Alina arrived at his office, Marcus had a large aerial blueprint of Willow Ridge laid out across his desk. It wasn't a zoning map. It was a development proposal. Where did this come from? Alina asked. A former board member. Anonymous, for now, but he couldn't live with the guilt. Karen's plan wasn't just to annex your land, trying to redevelop the entire eastern edge of the neighborhood. Marcus pointed to the shaded blocks that included Elena's land. She's calling it Willow Ridge East, a luxury expansion. Townhouses, a clubhouse, even a dog park. She already submitted a pre-approval request to the county last week. Elena's voice dropped. Without owning the land. Exactly, she needs full control. That's why she pushed the fake charter amendments. She needed enough of the landowners to either be tricked, scared, or sued into submission. Alina scanned the map, her eyes landing on her own parcel. She marked my house as future green space. Marcus nodded grimly. And here's the kicker. The developer she partnered with is her cousin. He stands to make 7 figures, if the land transfer goes through. Alina didn't blink. Can we stop it? Oh, we can do more than stop it. We can expose it. Marcus was already ahead. The whistleblower had handed over not just the proposal, but an email thread where Karen promised to clean up the borderland squatters before county review. One of those emails even had a draft plan to file nuisance complaints on a home to trigger forced compliance actions. They were going to try and declare your land a public safety risk, Marcus said, claim it's undermaintained, then lobby for condemnation. Alina leaned back in the chair, the weight of Karen's scheme settling into her bones. It was worse than she thought. It wasn't personal, it was a land grab dressed in HOA rules and pastel PowerPoint slides. But Karen had made one mistake. She thought Alina would fight back with anger. Instead, Alina fought back with precision. The next day, Marcus scheduled an emergency hearing with the county zoning commission. Alina brought the blueprint, the fake maps, the hidden emails, and a timeline of every manipulated document. Karen arrived 20 minutes late, wearing sunglasses indoors, and a scarf that didn't quite hide her panic. She barely looked at Alina. She didn't speak during the hearing because she couldn't. Marcus did the talking. And the room listened. By the end of the session, the commission issued an immediate freeze on all zoning change requests originating from Willow Ridge. The proposed development plan was placed under review, and an investigation into misuse of HOA funds was formally opened. But just as the hearing adjourned, Alina turned to leave and saw Karen outside in the hallway, whispering furiously into her phone. Alina paused to listen. We need to move faster, Karen hissed. If they dig any deeper, they'll find the vote logs. I don't care how you do it, delete them, all of them. Karen turned and saw Alina standing there. They locked eyes. Neither spoke, but the war had just changed. Karen had more to hide, and Alina had just found the door the next time Alina entered the courthouse. She wasn't just a homeowner fighting for her land, she was walking proof that Karen Delaney's carefully constructed empire was about to collapse. Inside, the hearing room buzzed with whispers. Reporters had shown up this time. The county zoning board was already under fire for approving previous HOA developments with suspiciously rapid timelines, and Alina's case was the match that lit the gasoline trail. Marcus met her at the door, holding a folder with a red tab poking out. We got them, he said simply. What is it? Alina asked, eyes sharp. Minutes from an illegal board meeting, and a vote log. But Karen said those were deleted. Marcus smiled. They were, but our whistleblower had already downloaded them weeks before. He just didn't realize what he was sitting on until now. The folder contained screenshots and PDFs from a shadow session that had taken place at Karen's house, an unrecorded HOA board vote held over wine and tapas. No public notice. No quorum. And yet, in that illegal meeting, they passed the vote to annex 3 residential lots including Elena's. The kicker. 2 of the signatories didn't even live in Willow Ridge anymore. Dead votes, fake approvals, documented fraud. Inside the hearing room, the judge called the case to order. Karen was already seated, her legal counsel red-faced and whispering rapidly in her ear. Alina noticed her hands trembling slightly. Gone was the confident smirk. In its place, strained desperation. Marcus stepped forward and laid out the evidence. This isn't just about zoning overreach, he began, his tone calm but cutting. This is an orchestrated campaign to seize land under false legal pretenses. HOA President Karen Delaney, alongside complicit board members, staged a private vote with falsified participation. These votes were then used to support fraudulent documents submitted to the county for annexation and redevelopment. Karen's lawyer tried to object, but the judge raised her hand. Do you have evidence supporting these claims, Mr. Vance? Marcus opened the folder and handed over the printouts, meeting logs, email trails, and the original vote sheet including the names of 2 individuals who've since moved out of state, and one who, according to public record, died last year. The judge's eyebrows rose. Karen's lawyer asked for a recess. It was denied. The judge leaned forward. Ms. Delaney, you submitted these votes to the County Zoning Commission under penalty of perjury. Would you care to explain how a deceased homeowner managed to vote in favor of your development plan? Karen stood up slowly. Her voice cracked. I trusted my assistant to gather the votes. I never. Are you claiming someone else forged them? The judge asked. Karen hesitated. Her eyes scanned the room like she was looking for a hole in the floor to crawl into. I don't recall. No further questions, Marcus said smoothly. But we reserve the right to press criminal charges for fraud, document tampering, and unlawful surveillance. The judge tapped her gavel. Until this matter is resolved, all HOA development actions and jurisdictional expansions are suspended. Any existing surveillance equipment must be removed within 72 hours. Furthermore, this court is referring the matter to the County District Attorney's Office for further investigation. Alina exhaled for the first time in what felt like weeks. Karen slumped back into her seat, pale and frozen. But Alina wasn't done because Marcus leaned over and whispered something into her ear as they left. That whistleblower, he says Karen's been shredding files, and he made copies. Alina stopped in the hallway, heart pounding. What kind of files? Marcus gave her a look. On every homeowner. Personal info, medical histories, background checks. She was collecting dirt to keep them compliant. Alina felt ice crawl up her spine. Karen hadn't just forged maps. She'd been building dossiers. Blackmail. This wasn't just legal, it was criminal. And Alina had just crossed the threshold into the storm's center. Karen didn't leave her house for 2 days after the hearing. The once bustling HOA headquarters, her pristine front porch was now silent. The flag out front hung limply in the summer heat. The mailbox overflowed with letters. And the neighborhood, it was awake now, angry. Doug, the soft-spoken treasurer, was the first board member to step down. His resignation email leaked to the residents within an hour. He admitted that Karen had pressured him into signing non-standard forms, some of which he never even read. He apologized and fled to his sisters in Arizona. Then came Jenny, the HOA secretary, who went one step further. She held a community meeting at her house without Karen. Over 30 residents showed up. Some brought copies of violation letters they'd received for things like non-regulation, flower colors, or flags not approved by the holiday decor committee. One woman had been fined $200 for putting a little free library near her driveway. But it was the story of Mark Bennett, a quiet widower from the edge of the neighborhood, that sent a chill through the room. She knew my late wife had cancer, he said softly, holding a manila envelope. I found out she pulled our HOA file and noted her condition. 2 weeks after the funeral. She tried to fine me for overgrown hedges and said I was bringing down neighborhood morale. A silence fell over the room. Then someone shouted, "Let's vote to remove her." But they couldn't. Karen had rewritten the rules last year to extend her term and require unanimous board approval for a removal. And most of the board had already vanished. It was Marcus who suggested the next move. Dissolve the HOA entirely. It wouldn't be easy, but under county statute, if more than 60% of homeowners signed a repeal petition and presented evidence of misconduct, that HOA could be dismantled by resident vote. Alina helped draft the letter. By the end of the week, it had over 100 signatures. Enough. Karen, still clinging to power, tried to counter. She sent out a mass email calling the petition a coordinated smear campaign by outside agitators. She accused Alina of trying to undermine community unity for personal gain. But the residents had seen too much. They'd seen the illegal cameras. They'd seen the fake votes, and now, thanks to the whistleblower's copies, they saw the personal data files. Karen had compiled suspiciously labeled folders with notes like divorce pending, financially vulnerable, and disciplinary past. When news of the files broke, it hit local media. Karen's face was on the evening news that night, her voice trembling as she tried to explain the need to maintain proper records for HOA compliance. The next morning, the final blow landed. The county sheriff's office executed a search warrant on Karen's home. Residents gathered on sidewalks as deputies carried out hard drives, laptops, and stacks of file boxes. Alina stood across the street, arms crossed, watching silently as Karen was led out, not in cuffs, but not proudly either. Her blazer was wrinkled, her hair undone, her face pale. She refused to look at anyone. The residents parted as she walked past, silent. Later that week, the HOA voted. It was unanimous. Willow Ridge, HOA, was officially dissolved. Karen's property was placed under lien to repay fines and legal damages. Her koi pond was drained by order of the county for being built without proper permits. Her house went up for sale days later, and Alina, she walked her land for the first time in months without checking over her shoulder. No cameras, no patrol cars, no fake notices taped to her gate, just wind in the trees and freedom underfoot. But she wasn't quite finished because one final letter had arrived, sealed, official, and urgent. It wasn't from Karen, it was from Karen's developer cousin. He wanted to make a deal. The letter was crisp, professional, and printed on embossed paper. Alina read it twice before she even blinked. The logo at the top was from Pinewood Horizon Developments, the same company Marcus had circled weeks ago, the same one Karen had been colluding with behind everyone's back. The letter wasn't threatening, it was an offer. Dear Ms. Morgan, in light of recent changes to Willow Ridge's management and the dissolution of the HOA, we'd like to revisit the opportunity to include your property in our upcoming redevelopment plans for the Willow Ridge East Luxury District. We are prepared to offer a competitive buyout, well above current market value, along with relocation assistance and future shareholder incentives. Alina folded the letter slowly. The nerve. Karen had tried to force her out, steal her land, smear her name. And now, with Karen disgraced and the HOA buried in its own lies, the same family thought she'd sell quietly and walk away. She didn't call them. She called Marcus. He arrived the next morning with 2 coffees and that sly lawyer's grin she was growing to love. They're scared, he said. They know the zoning freeze you helped trigger could stall their project for a year, maybe longer. They're hoping you'll cave and help them push it through faster. I won't, Alina said. But I want to do more than just say no. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Go on. I want the lot next to mine. The one Karen tried to annex into her park project. It's sitting in legal limbo right now. If I buy it, I can block access to the development's eastern route. No road, no expansion. Marcus chuckled. Tactical, vindictive. I love it. Within a week, Alina had done it. She bought the adjacent lot through a private sale quietly, and in cash. She had her name added to the deed, right under a clause that restricted all future construction access through her land. It was like locking a gate, with a key Karen never knew existed. And then, just for the cherry on top, Alina replaced the old, splintered fence post that had started it all. In its place, she installed a new oak sign, handcrafted and sealed in iron. It read, Private property. No trespassing. No HOA. Trespassers meet lawyers. On the afternoon, the sign went up. A sleek black SUV rolled past and slowed near her driveway. Inside was a man in a tailored suit, sunglasses on, and a clipboard in his lap. He saw the sign. He saw Lena standing beside it, and he kept driving. She smiled and walked back, toward the porch. A few weeks later, Karen's house officially sold to a retiree couple who tore out the koi pond, planted tomatoes, and never once mentioned by laws. Word spread through the old neighborhood. Life was simpler now. There were no meetings, no fines, no secret patrols, just neighbors and fences and the freedom to be left alone. The legacy Karen tried to build was gone, scrubbed, clean, and Alina. She sat on her porch one quiet evening, watching the sun dip below the ridge. Marcus was beside her, going over some new paperwork for a conservation easement she was filing to protect her land from any future development attempts. She looked at him and grinned. Well, she said, raising her mug. Here's to trespassers, and lawyers. Marcus smirked, and 2 women who don't lose. They clinked mugs. Behind them, the windmill spun freely in the breeze, approved, unregulated, and completely hers. The end.